Super Rugby Power Rankings for round number 2. Remember, we still haven't had any Trans-Tasman matches yet, but hopefully that's on the cards for the second half of the season. We're only 2 rounds in, so Power Rankings are still short on the old data, but we'll go through the 6 teams on each side of the Tasman. Eventually we'll be able to kind of meld them all together and see how things are looking, but we will start across the ditch. In Australia, I've got the Rebels at 6. I thought it was going to be the Drua, but the way I'm calculating the rankings kind of also takes home and away into account. The Rebels lost at home pretty badly against the Force. They were lackluster, to put it very mildly. The Rebels are looking all kinds of bad so far, but we're only 2 rounds in. There's still plenty of time for things to be rejigged. But yeah, as far as starts to the season go, not the best one for the Rebels, nor for the Highlanders. Now, I mean, the Highlanders got well beaten by the Crusaders at the weekend. There's no real shame in that. But I mean, you're in Dunedin, despite the fact that you got no crowd, that should be kind of an advantage to you. And they got well beaten. So, none from 2 for the Highlanders. It's not the ideal start to the season, but someone had to go 2-0, I guess. Not necessarily, but that's what happened to these 2. The Rebels have got the Drua next, so they may be able to bounce back, I would say. If I was betting, I'd be putting my money on the Rebels to win. And the Highlanders will play the Canes, which based on their last 10-minute performance 2 weeks in a row, could be a tough ask. Back to the Australian side, we've got the Drua. They are there in 5th. They're also none from 2. They've been given 2 hidings, 2 in a row. But they've been away from home, which in terms of the calculations gives them a bit less penalty. But I think technically their next game is a home game, but it's still going to be played in Australia. So it just makes it a bit of an even more challenging start to what is already a challenging start for a new team. But yeah, hopefully they can start to bring those margins down soon, because yeah, like I said, nobody wants to get 2 hidings in a row. My Blues are in 5th. It still burns the fact that they let go a seemingly pretty comfortable lead. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. The Blues had the winning of that game and then they lost. So yeah, it's very much a typical Blues start to the season. They get your hopes up just to have them smashed, but you do have to give credit to the Canes. As I said, that's 2 weeks. They've done that in a row now. Final 10 minutes, the Canes are probably the best team in the competition. If they can play that way for longer than 10 minutes, they'll be even better. But yeah, sad for my Blues, but there you go. You got to play for 80 minutes. It's an 80-minute game. You got to tackle. For goodness sake, tackle. Aussie side of the draw, we go to the Tars. Remember, the Tars were right rooted to the bottom of the competition log last year, but they are 1-1 now, despite the fact that they lost to the Reds, who are the big team in Australia at the moment. The Waratahs looked all right, man. They probably should have won that game. I mean, statistically, they had they dominated every kind of aspect of that game, but it's the scoreboard's the one stat that matters. So yeah, there's positive signs from this new look Waratahs side. So fingers crossed they can push on. They've got the Brumbies away next, which will be another big test. I've already mentioned the Drua have got the Rebels, which will be a good test to see between those 2 sides. And the Blues, I forgot to mention, have the Chiefs, albeit at home, because I think they're going to play Eden Park Ball without a crowd. So yeah, that's looking like a tough ask for the Blues based on round 1, but we'll see. These guys, Moana, Pasifika, haven't got underway yet. Still 2 buys. Remember, they've had COVID in their camp, so we are still waiting. They're supposed to play the Crusaders in round 3. And I don't know, man. As far as introductions to the competitions go, a first up match against a red-hot Crusaders side have already shaken off 2 rounds of rust. You come into it in your first match ever, that could get pretty hairy, but good luck. Fingers crossed these guys are all back healthy and can get playing. But yeah, that's going to be a challenge. The Force, I've got at number 3. The Force have been looking quietly decent. I don't want to talk the Force up too much just yet, but I mean, based on what we saw in round 1, I mean, I picked them to beat the Rebels. I don't know if I picked them by that much. I certainly didn't. But yeah, I thought the Force looked promising. They've got the structure of a pretty solid team there. And they showed us a little bit more cutting edge against the Rebels, albeit a pretty bad-looking Rebels team. So, yeah, optimistic for the Force. I feel like they are on a good trajectory rather than a team like the Rebels who seem to be sinking like a stone 2 rounds in. So I'm not speaking too much, but as I said, a bit optimistic about the Force, a little bit pessimistic about the Rebels thus far. They've got the Reds at home, and I think, as people have told me, they're going to be playing in Perth, so they'll be getting a crowd, not at full capacity, but yeah, hopefully that Sea of Blue can cheer them on. And yeah, hopefully they can give the Reds a run for their money. Hurricanes I've got in third for New Zealand. They are at a 1-1 record, so 1 win, 1 loss. They lost, 10 points round 1 against the Crusaders. Not too much shame in that. Like, the Crusaders are a tough side. And then coming back from seemingly the dead to beat my Blues. Yeah. Just play longer. Like that last 10 minutes. Whatever it is, they've got real fire in the belly for those last 10 minutes. So, yeah, they've got the Highlanders next, and I think they'll be backing themselves. Yeah, the Hurricanes. My dad is the first to admit that he didn't think they were going to do much this season. And, yeah, now he reckons they are starting to look, even after round 1, he said that they look like they could be a threat. So we will see. Aussie side, Brumbies are in second. The Brumbies are 2-0. They beat the Drua. They put them to the sword, really. They didn't have it all their own way, and they scored a few tries which would maybe not be as easily scored, by more kind of cohesive defences. They scored a few easy ones, you could say, out wide. Well-worked ones, because you've got to give them credit. But, yeah, they'll be tested by the Waratahs in their next home game. That will be, I think, a nice test of where they're at, because the Waratahs weren't too far off the pace against the Reds, and the Reds are supposed to be similar to the Brumbies, so we will see. The Chiefs, remember, they didn't play their game against Moana Pasifika in round 2 because of the COVID cases in the Moana Pasifika camp. So they're 1-0. They got the Blues next, and despite the fact that it's in Auckland, I'll probably be backing the Chiefs. Just because the Chiefs look to have a bit of cutting edge about them, whereas the Blues lost the plot. But 1 game in, I won't get too dramatic. The Reds obviously top, because they're the only one left, of the Aussie conference. Now, they haven't been blowing teams out of the water yet. So it's another one where we're not 100% sure 2 rounds in. They've had 2 solid but not spectacular victories in their opening 2 rounds, but victories nonetheless. Their away trip to Perth will be one to watch. I'm quite keen to see how that one goes. Because, yeah, it's a good test for Brad Thorne to be able to kind of maintain those desired performance levels like the Crusaders. They've been doing it year in, year out. They are going to play Moana Pasifika if that game goes ahead. And kind of no surprises that early on, the Crusaders are looking like the team to beat from both conferences. But, I mean, not looking invincible. So, yeah, we'll kind of see how things go. The Highlanders did give them a bit of trouble at the weekend, but 80 minutes. It takes 80 minutes to beat the Crusaders. So there you go. Those are the power rankings for round number 2. You guys let me know your thoughts. Do you think the Rebels will beat the Drua this week? As I said, if I was betting on it, I probably would be doing it. But I look at the New Zealand Conference, those sides 1, 2 and 3, and I think I'll be backing them for their wins against 4, 5 and 6 this weekend. But anyway, you guys have any thoughts, and I'll see you guys again soon. See you later.